We've randomly selected 5 Calgary Barbell subscribers to get free coaching and technique analysis. And in today's video, we brought back professional powerlifting coach and IPF medalist, Nick Manders. How's it going, Nick?
I'm good, yourself?
I'm good, man. So in Form Check Friday, like I said, we're gonna throw some videos up on the screen. Y'all have submitted these. If you're interested in submitting them, check the description box below. Also, today's video is brought to you by Bells of Steel. More on that in a little bit. So let's get right into it. Our first video here comes from Zach. Now, let's see what we got going on with Zach. So Zach, born and raised in Saskatoon area, lifting at Rise. Shout out to Rise Strength. Always struggled with deadlifts, been able to break out off the floor, and past the knee, the lockout becomes frustrating. Tried a few blocks of sumo, but led to hip pain. Not a direct correlation, but has squatted 310 before, so it makes me feel like the issue is more technique than it is strength. So, because I was reading that and you were watching this, I'll let you take the first stab at this, Nick. What do you think?
Right away, I don't even know how much it is technique. I think that, just looking at his leverages, he's always gonna have a harder time at lockout. Because of how, to be blunt, how short his arms are and how stocky his build is, he's going to be forced in that very rounded position at the bottom. He's always gonna have a lot more ease off the floor, but as soon as he gets to lockout, I mean, it's always gonna be harder. I don't know how much he could really afford to tweak here. I think it really is just gonna be, you might just have to get stronger.
Right. I think, so one thing that comes to me right away is the belt. I feel like the belt may be a little overly tight. We might be kind of messing with some of the awareness to be able to get into a good trunk position. I think that, I'm always back and forth because I think in some cases with bigger, stockier lifters, I like to try to tell them to widen things up so they can make more room for the torso so we're not running into the quads. But I think in this case, I might actually get this lifter, Zach, to narrow the stance so that we can try to drive those knees out a little bit. Because this looks to me somewhat like his knees are at this sort of inward angle. And I think a lot of the times when the knees are more inward like that, we end up not really getting as much out of the hips. So instead of the hips being able to hold that same angle off the floor, he loses that angle. And then we start losing more of that sort of low back. We go into more flexion, which we obviously have to recover from to get locked out at the end. So I think there are some positional things. I do think what you're saying, Nick, about it just kind of being the way it is with bigger lifters and there are lifters who are built to squat more than they're built to deadlift, right? That's just gonna be a thing for some people. But yeah, I mean, that would be my take is maybe narrowing the stance, loosening the belt a little bit, pulling back enough that you can get more reps where you're not fighting like that at lockout. And then, hammer the lockout, do, pause deadlifts where you're forced to hold position better off the floor, deadlift against bands where you're gonna get even more pulling against you at lockout. It's gonna get harder at lockout, so you can kind of train the exact strength curve that's giving you troubles.
Touching on belt, how do you feel about a higher belt position? Because as soon as you touched on that, I remembered a bigger gentleman, George Lehman, way back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Baby Slayer or whatever. He would wear his belt way cinched up high, and it would give him a lot more space in the bottom, right? And also give him a bit of rebound because, if he has a lot of, gut in the way, you can pack that down. Now you can sort of bounce off of that. And then it lets you swing through lockout a bit easier too, because you just have so much stuff contracted to just swing through. So it could be worth experimenting with that, just wearing the belt a lot higher. It's quite low right now, right? It's kind of tucked around the hips. Whereas if we pull that way up and almost cinch it around the ribs, pull that down, that might also help. If you want to try and lock out a bit lower, if lockout is the issue and you cinch the ribs down, that might just help you pull you down a bit more too. And give you more,
stay a little more protracted,
get into a bit more stacked position. So it might be worth, either loosening the belt or just trying to play with placement a lot. It doesn't necessarily need to go down around the hips. It can go a lot higher around the ribs.
Yeah, I've seen more and more people have success with that. I haven't had success with that myself. I don't know if I have any clients specifically who have done that, but I know for certain that there are a lot of lifters, again, usually stockier builds, And specifically on the deadlift, where it's just for whatever reason, maybe it's more comfortable, maybe it assists the brace a little bit, but like wearing it up over almost like the bottom of the ribs, even like kind of just under the pecs almost. But yeah, I've definitely seen that before and seen that used to some success. So I mean, it's not gonna do you a disservice or any harm to try it out. So that would definitely be worth throwing on the stack of things to experiment with.
Yeah, if it sucks, just put the belt back.
yeah, exactly. It's pretty easy fix. Real quick, Nick, who are you? What do you do?
I'm Nick Manders. I am a powerlifter. I am a coach for CSF, Clean Strength Fitness. And really, that's it.
Okay.
I coach, I lift. This is my life.
Hey.
And I love it.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
All right, up next, we got Oliver. Oliver's doing some squats here and says he started lifting about a year before the pandemic. Been doing it for about 2.5 years. Competed a couple times, plans to compete in September at 90 kilos. He says his Fed uses monolift. He'd like to open with around 500 and looks like he's got 222.5 on the bar there. So what is that, 490 something?
492?
Gentleman's 500.
Yeah. Who's counting?
Says he's been struggling to hit a max of anything over 525 or so. He says he finds a sticking point just out of the hole where it kind of turns into a good morning before falling forward. You can see him stick slightly in the video. Any form or programming advice to avoid or get around that sticking point? Again, I mean, you can start it off. I was reading, so.
Sticking points are just gonna happen. You're not really ever gonna avoid them. When things get too heavy, you'll hit a sticking point. I don't think it's...
this episode, don't fix your technique, just get stronger.
Yeah. I mean, this squat, it's great. There's really not too much to critique in terms of technique. If we're trying to avoid like a later sticking point, you're just going to develop a sticking point somewhere else. The squat's got to get sticky somewhere. If we are going to critique this, it's really going to be like the most minute details regarding like maybe get a bit more tension on the bar, maybe a bit more pressure, maybe a bit more stack, but they all really relate to just a bit more effort. Technically, the squat is near ideal. I wouldn't change too much. And in terms of like, you know, once it gets heavier, it gets harder. Yeah, it's always gonna get harder as it gets heavier, and everyone has a max, right? That's the point of the sport, is trying to find your max and then trying to increase it. So, you know, if we're having issues around a 530, 540, 550 mark, it's just gonna get pushed, and the programming is just, you just keep pushing, you just keep trying.
Yeah,
it's an effort.
So if you look at this squat, is there anything that you would specifically, you know, program? Anything that you're like, oh, I can maybe see that this isn't X, Y, or Z, you know, any like body parts or specific squat variations or anything like that? Or are you just thinking more comp squats?
It's a relatively quad dominant squat. The knee stays very forward. It never really kicks back. So then I'm thinking hack squats, strengthen the quads a lot. Maybe front squats if you want to get crazy. I don't love front squats, but if you want to do like a barbell oriented variation, either a front or a high bar squat, maybe we can look at some Bulgarian split squats to still work on the quad while maybe getting some unilateral work in.
Yeah.
But really there's no huge changes to make. There's no massive interventions needed to programming or technique to make. It's really just, you're already strong, the technique is already good. Just improve upon that.
Keep chipping away. So yeah, I mean, more or less, you know, I can see here that little tiny shift in the brace as we go into the bottom, right? We do get that tiny little bit of knees back. I can see the kind of like squat morning pattern. This is sub-maximal, right? So like as it gets heavier, that's gonna become more and more pronounced, sure. So, you know, working on maintaining your brace into the bottom. I don't even think you need to change how you're bracing, but just making sure that we're being really intentional with keeping the trunk and all elements of the trunk the same into and out of the bottom, right? We're keeping the same sort of expansion into the belt. We're keeping the same upper back position. That is one other thing. We see a slight little bit of the shoulders kind of rolling forwards to try to keep tight and resist that bar rolling. So I don't know if you could play around with maybe your grip or wrist or elbow position, even just kind of how you're cueing your upper back, right? If you're thinking about wedging your elbows forward to stay tight, then, you know, I'd maybe try to keep them a little more where they are on the descent, because I think that looks a little better. Programming wise, yeah, like Nick said, you've got a freaking wonderful squat. There's nothing here that's like technically, oh, this is the limit. This is like what's holding you back. I don't see anything like that. And then to just kind of piggyback off of what Nick was saying about accessory selection, leg press, man. I freaking love leg press. I've been doing leg press like crazy the last little while. And it just, I don't know, it feels good. My knee is still a bit testy from time to time, and it's something where I can push pretty damn hard and still feel good afterwards. And it just, yeah, I don't know. I like leg press. What can I say? I'm a simple man. I like leg press. So yeah, hopefully that helps Oliver, but mostly things look great. And you know, having a sticking point doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Having a sticking point is a very natural thing that's gonna happen in any lift, really.
Just means it's heavy.
Yeah. A lot of the times, you know, we can see maybe a little more on bench or something where, okay, yeah, we're losing a boatload of shoulder position and that's why it's getting sticky. Sometimes that stuff is the case, but
it's gotta stick somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you would just hit everything.
As I mentioned, this video series, Form Check Friday, is brought to you by Bells of Steel. They're a Calgary-based company. They make dope-ass strength equipment. We got a bunch of their benches. We got one of their Hydra racks right behind me. You can probably see it there. The lat stack, seated row, lat pull-down attachment to sort of combo piece is honestly one of my favorite things we have in this gym, period. I use it almost every workout. It goes heavy as hell. I think there's a 300-pound stack, a loading pin, and band pegs. So I've yet to max that out. Let me know down in the comments if anyone out there has maxed out that lat stack, because I think that would be pretty impressive. Anyways, they're here in Calgary. They have distribution in the US and in Canada to make shipping costs affordable, and their stuff stands up. We've been beating the crap out of it for years. They helped us equip this place when we opened it up. So shout outs to Bells of Steel, no discount code or anything. Just go check them out, click the link in the description, and thanks to them for making Form Check Friday keep on keeping on. All right, this is Tay. 6 foot, 230 pounds, relatively new to powerlifting. He's been lifting for just over a year. 1RM conventional, 525, 3RMs, 495. Usually does 455, 3x3 at RP 6 or 7. Trying to clean up the form and technique to get into the 600 club. Enjoys deadlifting the most. Any tips on achieving 600? Is there something you see in this video that might be stagnating or halting his progression? Has a double Achilles rupture along with a QL injury, PCL meniscus tear on my right knee. Sometimes my lockout is not straight enough in the knees. Don't really feel any pain when I'm deadlifting. Only usually when I'm squatting. Would appreciate the feedback. Thanks. Huge fan. Loves what we're doing over at Calgary Barbell and Clean Strength Fitness, he says in here too, actually.
He totally says that. I can read that from here.
All right. What did you see, Nick?
I want to say that he's
what's the one magic technique cue that immediately takes him to a 600-pound deadlift?
Fast trig. Give yourself a bit more space.
Coaches hate him.
Bar a bit more in front of you, probably.
Okay. You feel like it's a little tight off the floor?
It's a little back,
okay.
And then we continue to also pull backwards. And I think that a big mistake that a lot of lifters make is they try to keep the bar super, super close. And in doing that, they want to really pull not just upwards, but backwards. And if your lockouts are sticky, it's probably because you're pulling into your quads. Because as it gets heavier, as the lift gets slower, you're gonna be more and more prone to really try to pull it into yourself, try and keep the bar close. And like you're seeing here, you pull it into yourself a bit. If this got too heavy, he's probably gonna get a ramping call, if that's a concern. If we're looking at competing,
wedge the knees under.
If we're looking at competing or anything, you know, my thing for ramping is as soon as the knee almost starts to get in front of like the shoulder joint, it's probably a ramp. So what we can do is give ourselves more space at the start. Back away from the bar a little bit, and then instead of thinking of pulling backwards into us, just think about pulling up and then meeting the bar at the top. I think as soon as you start to pull back, you're lucky here in that you kind of have leggings and a relatively like smooth competition, or not competition, but commercial bar. So the bar can really like slide up your thigh. As soon as you lose either of those, I mean, if you want to use baby powder all the time and you have like a perfect position on a comp bar, maybe you get away with it, but then again, ramping calls. Then again, it's still friction. If you can avoid any friction, why not?
Yeah.
And I think it also just creates a more inefficient movement pattern where we sort of get under the bar and then we try to like squat to finish it, as opposed to staying over the bar, trying to pull the bar linearly straight up and then meeting the bar. It just puts our hips in a much better position to sort of hinge through and swing back, as opposed to getting under it and then trying to like lock the knees out and unround the back at the same time to try and lock out. So just give yourself a bit more space, let the bar hang a little bit farther in front of you.
Yeah, I like that specific, you said to squat to finish it. And I think that's a really good way of thinking about like kind of how people end up ramping, right? Because you get to the knee and then it's like, okay, this is getting hard. So we want to like wedge the knees underneath it, get the torso or the trunk into a really upright position. And then like try to kind of unfurl and squat to finish it. Where if, you keep yourself back a little more in the hips and in the knees, especially right around this point, like this is kind of the crucial part of the lift, I think, where you're gonna either drive your knees underneath it and potentially ramp it up, run into a bunch of extra friction, maybe lose more position, whatever, or you're gonna stay back here and be able to like hinge it out and finish with the hips. So I love all those cues, and I think Nick absolutely hit it on the head. The big thing about pulling back, and I replayed this one a number of times because I think it's especially evident here that the first movement, like the whole lower body stays exactly the same, and you just kind of like pull back from the shoulders. It's like you're trying to pull back. And so let's pretend this is an empty bar and you can move it however you want, in any way, shape, or form, whatever. There's not really much resistance. If you pull back from this position without, your knees going back from becoming more extended, what you're doing is you're wedging this into yourself and you're pulling back as your knees are going forward into the bar, right? Like if you were to grab an empty bar and just do that right now, you'd be pushing your knees into the bar as you pull back on it. So you're essentially fighting against yourself for the first, I don't know, half to maybe 2/3 of the lift here. And I think, putting the bar maybe a little more over the laces so it doesn't have to go out to get around your knee. And then the next cue, and like Nick was saying, it's all kind of the same stuff, just different wording. Just really think more about pushing the bar and don't be afraid to stay over the bar. I think a lot of people, especially maybe like early intermediate lifters with the deadlift, they're like, I got to get upright. I got to get upright. I got to get behind the bar. Everything needs to be behind the bar. But like, you kind of got to stay a little more over the bar. And that actually has been a game changer for me in my own deadlift, coming back from my knee injury and doing some stuff differently, because I really did develop the habit of wedging myself too far behind the bar. Because I kept thinking back and being like, man, when my deadlifts were at their best, like what was it feeling like? What were the cues? What was I thinking about? And it was straight up, I was just driving through my heels. I remember that being like the only sensation I had was just get all the weight on your heels and push. And I don't think at 120 that works for me. I don't think I can get into those same positions and get as wedged upright or as extended or whatever that you would need to be leverage advantaged in that position. So I have to now stay more over the bar, be a little bit hips higher. And that allows me to kind of, again, keep a little more front foot, forward foot pressure, a little more quads, a little more of that like pushing the floor more than pulling back on the bar. And I do think, we want to pull back on the bar, but probably not until it starts to get to be around your knees.
Yeah, I'd say pull back to finish. I think proprioceptively, trying to stay over the bar, it's like a kind of a more difficult concept to imagine. I just think about your head, right? If you look at this lifter, right? In his regards, his head and his chin especially, they're pulling back and up right away, right? We're almost trying to lead the barbell with our head. If we just stay more focused and almost patient,
like
and we just
the chin almost?
Yeah, it's like the old boomer cue of like tuck the chin a little bit.
Yeah,
keep your head down. But if you keep your head down a bit and tuck your chin, maybe the boomers were right, and you can stay over the bar a little bit more. If you're trying to, your body will kind of go where your head wants to go, right? And if we're looking up and we're trying to like crane back, then we'll pull back, right? If we sort of look more forward and keep the head a bit more forward, then we'll remain more balanced over the bar. So I think that like even just fixing up your head position could fix your deadlift if we want these fast track little fixes.
Yeah, one simple trick.
Boomers love, boomers love this cue. Keep your chin down.
Tuck your chin.
Nipples
hips,
to the
hips.
nipples to the floor, 5x5.
All right, this is Emmett. Just started an actual powerlifting program. Bull Mastiff. Does that mean anything to you? I think that's a powerlifting program. Anyways,
I only remember 5x5.
probably gonna get roasted for not knowing what that is. In 2 years, I'll be facing an army of memes about not knowing that. Currently on week 8, squatting at 87% of his working max. Struggling to hit higher weights, though I can usually hit lighter weights for a lot more. Struggles with a 6x4 at 240, even if he can do 205 for 16. Any advice would be great, thank you. How long have you been doing a powerlifting program? It might just be that you're really well adapted to doing reps from training differently before, and it's just gonna take some time to get good at grinding through a 6x4. A 6x4 is a decent amount of volume. So.
I mean, some lifters even, they're just really good at volume all the time. It's just like a genetic thing, and it kind of sucks. It's
like you can hit 10 with 90%,
yeah.
you struggle to hit
you can
2
just,
with 93.
Yeah, you can just decimate volume, but then you go for a max. It's like, why doesn't this translate?
Yeah.
I think maybe if you've been looking at like 1RM calculators, just scrap those. They don't mean anything.
Yeah, probably until you're at like the maybe like triple-ish range.
And even then.
Triple and down probably.
Yeah.
And you got to be pushing, I would say probably RP 8 or 9. And like a real 8 or 9 to get a decent idea from a calculator. You know, the thing about using those estimated maxes for anything, and again, I have no idea if that's what this lifter is talking about, but it's just an interesting topic of discussion. If you're using the E1RM and you're trying to calculate where your max should be at based on reps or based on RP, the best thing that's going to give you is an indication of like how good you did that day. Because then it will be relative session to session. Right? So if you did, 205 for 16 and then the next day you did 215 for 12, it's like, yeah, you can look at those and be like, which was better work, essentially, by virtue of it signifying a higher 1RM. What an estimation of 1RM doesn't tell you is what your 1RM is. Ironically enough, it'll give you a good indicator of progress throughout a period of training, but maybe not the most useful way of predicting what your actual 1RM is. That's something that takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to figure out.
The best way to find your 1RM is to do a 1RM. Frankly.
You could argue there is no superior way. There is no better way.
I don't think there is. We haven't found it yet. You could try to like use a bunch of bands and bores and then overload it and then see.
Yeah, you never know. Never know. So in terms of your squat here, I think the actual squat itself looks pretty freaking good. Like it's very efficient, really well braced. I would say if you're trying to push numbers and power lift, let's learn to low bar, right?
I was already thinking low bar, just he kind of wants to sort of, it looks like the bar tracks a bit towards the toe near the bottom, and you could just fix that up by having a lower bar position and it'll already be more stacked. There's the obvious one of, and this is a budgetary thing, you could get a belt. Belts help almost everybody on the squat. I don't know anyone that squats less with a belt, but that's a monetary constraint. You probably already know that as well. I do need to do my due diligence and just say, put clips on the bar, please.
Especially for the squat.
Just do it. I mean, it's an empty gym, so it's not like anything too bad will happen, but it's just a good habit. There's a clip right there on the floor.
I was just
it looks
gonna say,
like.
I can see one on the floor behind you.
Should be on the bar.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe put the bar a little lower on your back. The squat itself, in terms of sequencing, looks pretty great, honestly. It might even be that like maybe low bar he gets too convoluted with it. I really wouldn't mess with too much. I love self-organization and letting the body just do its thing. If you're naturally a good squatter and you're sort of new to it, and then you get a bunch of cues thrown at you, you might end up messing up your own movement. It's great. Just keep doing it. I hate that that's been a running theme with a lot of these, and my advice is just get stronger. But I mean, I think people are just getting better at lifting, right? Technique-wise, people just sort of know what a good lift looks like nowadays, and they kind of almost forget that like getting stronger just takes time. It takes a lot of years under the bar, a lot of time, a lot of reps, And if you're good at those reps, it maybe just makes that journey a bit easier. Just do more of them.
More consistent, yeah.
You just got to do more.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, yeah, play around with low bar. You look like you're pretty well oriented. Like, you look like if I gave you some cues, you would probably figure them out like that, and then it would be done, and that's it. So I don't think I would give you any other cues other than let's play around with low bar and see if that feels a little bit better. You know, can see that little bit of the bar trying to roll forward on you in the bottom, right? That little bit of you kind of having to push your neck back into it a little. So, you know, if the bar's a little further down, so if this is your shoulder joint here and the bar's up here and the bar wants to move forward, it can roll there. If this is your shoulder joint here and the bar's down here and the bar wants to move forward, right? It's gonna be a little more locked in place. Other than that, literally keep doing what you're doing.
But with clips on the bar.
But with clips on the bar. Pick that one up.
And put it on the bar.
Put it on the bar. Our next lifter is Patty. Patty's doing deadlifts. Deadlifts. Hello, just signed up for my first powerlifting meet in July of this year. Hoping to hear any technique advice about, any technique advice you might have. I notice when the weight starts to go up on my deadlift, my tendency will be to try to pull rather than push from the floor. For example, I attempted 280 2 minutes before the one I pulled here and failed about mid-shin because I could feel that my legs weren't pushing after a certain height.
I think it's fine.
I think maybe it's a bit paralysis through analysis. Like, if you watch this, it's not really like she's having problems pushing. I think that, like, maybe you get really worried.
The other one got a little stuck.
Yeah, you maybe get a little too worried if I'm pulling or pushing, and you maybe think too much during the pull. And I mean,
Stop watching so many Form Check Fridays.
When you're approaching the bar, you need to just commit.
Yeah.
You can't be thinking midway through the lift, am I doing this, am I doing that? You need to approach it with some amount of confidence and aggression. I think that this lift will move a lot better if maybe you weren't thinking about cues during the movement.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You don't have to stop watching Form Check Friday, just don't think about it while you're lifting.
Yeah,
Right. If you're going for a heavy single at least, right? Like the technique cues and like trying to cultivate your technique and improve and change things, like that's all well and good for like back off sets, right? Where you're like, oh, that one thing felt a little off on my top single. Let's see if I can get that to feel a little different or better by using a very slight cue in my back off work. But when you're going to pull a heavy single that's like, it's heavy enough that you said you missed it at some point, right? So I have to imagine this is in like the 95+% territory. And yeah, like Nick's saying, you kind of gotta be able to empty your head and trust your own technique and just lift, just do the thing.
There was a very old company in powerlifting called LVD, and that stood for Lift, Visualize, Dominate. And I always thought that that was in the completely wrong order, because you should visualize and then lift.
Probably, yeah.
And then you'll dominate, maybe. You could still not lift.
The dominate is,
But, yeah, the dominate is, But you shouldn't be visualizing during your lift. Do all of that beforehand, right? Like, that's the cueing, that is the sequencing. You sort of go through your head, you go through, this is what I'm going to do, and then you have to execute it. But if you try to execute and then visualize and think about what you're doing while you're doing it, then yeah, you kind of get stuck and then you power right through because you remember. You need to sort of just like cue it up in your head and then execute it like it's a file.
Yeah, sometimes the best cue is just stand up real hard.
Yeah, that is the best cue with like 95% and up. Just, you gotta do it.
Yeah, at some point, like a lot of that stuff kind of has to go out the window. And that's why I like, you know, I remember, I think it was Ryan Stinn was coaching me at Worlds in 2016. And part of their questionnaire was like, what is there like one thing, like one specific cue and only one cue that like I could yell at you during a lift that might have some, you know, benefit. And for me in my squat, it was just like making sure my lats were locked in. Thinking about my lats. I know Nick is just, his skin's crawling as I talk about this.
Can't believe that.
But yeah, for me, it was just like thinking about my lats, making sure that my lats were locked in, because that just, whatever I do there locks in my whole upper back and then everything just kind of functions and it's fine. But the idea being distilling things down to like one word, right? Like Ryan yelled lats, and that was enough for me to like feel the things. And again, I make that distinction between like thinking about things and feeling things. And when we're doing the deadlifts, we really want to be feeling things. We want to think more about like, okay, do we have everything feeling the way we want it to? And then if so, like just lift. Empty the mind. It's very zen.
Yeah. I compare it a lot to sprinting, although I actually don't know any sprinters, so I could be completely wrong on this. But when I sprint,
All right.
I don't think about it. I kind of just go as fast as I can.
Yeah.
I think it should be the same with like a movement that you should be confident with, right? If you're going for like a 1RM, just go really hard.
And so the other thing is that looking at your deadlift over and over here again, you can be confident. Like your deadlift looks
lift.
good. You're executing, you know, like the basics, the things that should be the same among pretty much all lifters. Like you're doing it all really well, right? As much as I love Chuck Taylors as like a shoe outside of the gym, I'm not a huge fan of them in the gym. I lifted in them for many years, but I think we can see at the lockout there we are getting a little wobbles, and you know, maybe a thinner sole, maybe something a little more minimal would allow you to kind of just be a little more rooted.
They're such a classic shoe.
I mean, I have two plus pairs that I wear outside of the gym.
I never even lifted in them
I just
actually.
don't train in them
Yeah.
anymore. I lifted in them for years, and then I think it was right around the time Nike bought them. The quality of the All-Star, the basic model shoe, just kind of like went down the toilet, and I would blow through a pair of them in like 3 months. And was like, I can't do this anymore.
This has been a
There's got to
throwback.
be a better way.
This has been a throwback episode.
Yeah.
Chuck Taylors, Mark Ripito, George Lehman, chin down.
All right, come back next week for more boomer cues. Nick, where can people find you, man?
You can find me personally on Instagram at n.manders, and you can find Clean Strength Fitness at Clean Strength Fitness, both on Instagram. And if you want to work with me, there is a link in that bio.
Imagine. Tap the link in his bio. He's a good coach. He's a good guy. We'll probably have him back next week even.
Maybe.
We'll see. All right, like, subscribe, do all that kind of crap, and we'll see you next time. Bye.